What's the haps? I'm John, aka Meroka, and welcome to Spiel. We're in the Coral Phantom Gate this week, which is freezing and initially full of fiends, although that may vary, because that is how freeze works. There may be a variety of different freezing things, but for the moment they're going to be freezing fiends. They're going to throw snowballs at me, because they're terrible, terrible things. You need to get shot in the face with a blitz needle, quite frankly. So, let us start with, actually no, I'm not going to start with Spiel News. First I'm going to start with, things. Firstly, thank you to the people that sent me fan mail in-game. I don't get that very often, and there's like 2 this week, and like, that's always awesome to receive. I like hearing from people in-game, that's awesome. So, thank you to people who wrote to me via the in-game mail system. The sorely underused in-game mail system. So, yay! As a follow-up to that, I have actually entirely filled the friends list in-game. Again, that's like the 3rd or 4th time I've done that, so... yeah, sorry to anybody I have not been able to add back as a friend this week, because the game only allows me to add so many people, and I have hit that limit again. At some point in the future, I probably will go through and, you know, whittle that down and make space for people again. Anybody who's, you know, kind of not playing the game anymore will get removed and whatnot, but for now, until I can get around to that, that's a slightly time-consuming task. Until that happens, I'm afraid there are no more spaces. Oh, no more spaces. Sorry. So that's that. Alright, now let's do some Spiral Knights news. Yeah! I don't think there's any, well, there may well be more cosmetics, but they have not been announced yet. I suspect there probably will be. If my theory is correct, I think we've got to expect to see either Sapphire or Emerald stuff, but we shall see where that's going. The other noteworthy thing, the big noteworthy thing this week, really, is that, well, there's a kind of a Spiral Knights sequel, prequel, spin-off, something, not sure what, it's not really entirely finished yet on iOS. There's a game called Rise of Knights, which is, it would appear, made by 3 Rings, published by Sega, as is tradition, and it is set in the Spiral Knights universe. And it's, I don't know, it's kind of a weird one. I kind of don't want to go into too much at this moment, because I could talk about this for a while. There's plenty to talk about here, and I kind of feel like that probably deserves a video in its own right, so at some point, probably tomorrow, I'm going to aim to get out a video, which is just going to be literally just talking about Rise of Knights. But for now, there is an iOS game available, I believe, only in Canada. It's not yet finished, it's kind of, I guess, kind of an early access kind of dealio. This is kind of an early access iOS title, only available in Canada for testing purposes, that if you're a Canadian, you can download that and check that out. I believe it is mechanically damn near identical to a game that already exists called Chain Chronicle. I have not played Chain Chronicle, so I'm not really familiar with it. On the surface, it looks a lot like Plants and Zombies, but with moving things occasionally. It's lane defense is what it is. It's Plants vs. Zombies with a twist. It's the same genre, just kind of a little bit different. So yeah, that's the thing that's out. There is much discussion to be had on the forum. There is much discussion to be made about it, and I'm not going to go into too much length here, so I guess I will leave that there, and we will talk about this in a great deal more depth at a future juncture, probably tomorrow, as I say. I just wish to marshal my thoughts. When I do a long talky one, I kind of like to sit and ponder what the heck I want to say beforehand. I'm not the kind of person for long talky ones that I can go into it blind. I know people like Total Biscuit, when they do their long talky pieces, often do go into it blind without a script. They'll just like, now I'm going to talk for 20 minutes about XYZ, and they can just do that. I need to have a list of things I want to say. I need to know what I'm talking about, and offhand, offhand I don't have that, so I need to prepare. But preparations shall be had, and then talking shall be had, and then... okay, now that's a really weird setup. I guess if that was combined with the stuff that was in the room, that would be nasty, but as it is, they kind of don't heal each other. So what are they doing? Oh, a room full of silk rings. I've never seen this spawn a room full of silk rings before. Just a bunch of healers that don't heal each other. That's such a weird room. Hooray. Job done, congratulations. They didn't drop any loot. I couldn't remember whether the room was sort of a random chance to spawn loot or if the room spawned some loot once you'd killed everything. There you have a book. 5 ways to appease your pit boss. That is not helpful. I do not wish to appease my pit boss. I wish to shoot my pit boss in the face with a barrage of needles. A barrage of needles indeed. So let's, you know, go ahead and do that. There's a pit boss to shoot in the face with a barrage of needles. Oh god, I released Devilites. Uh-oh. Everything is ruined forever. Pit bosses are free. We need to shoot them. So yeah, that's the news. The news needs elaboration later. Let's move on to some questions. Questions that have been submitted by you fine folks. Actually, you didn't send me many last week, but that's okay because we got a bunch from before, and y'all are probably now that I've told you how I want to operate, you're probably just waiting until I say, "Hey, I'm going to bribe you all." You're going to wait till I bribe you to submit questions now. That's how you're going to work, isn't it? You're just like, I've got a really good question, but I'm going to wait until he's offering a video game in exchange for me giving him a question. I see right through you. I see your cunning plans. I know how you operate. You operate on the principle of free stuffs. And I get that. I understand. I understand the appeal of free stuffs. I get why you'd do that. I can't blame you. I have no one to blame but myself for that particular decision. Fortunately, it's probably going to work out in the long run, I imagine. Maybe? We'll see. I hope so. So, yeah, let's move on to questions. Questions that I have. Actually, I will begin with a couple of questions from the fan mail from Raga Prince, which says, what happened to everyone who was part of the Spiral Knights network? Indeed, one of the last things that was on the Arsenal podcast before they stopped the Arsenal podcast was that if the game ever updates, they will come back and do more Arsenal podcast. I don't know what happened with that. I don't run that, so you'd have to get in touch with Latterson to ask about that one. To be honest, I don't hear much from the Spiral Knights network crew, like, at all anymore. They still do stuff together. It's not really Spiral Knights, but they still do stuff. If you're subscribed to the Arsenal Podcast's YouTube channel, you will see that once in a blue moon, Latterson uploads some group gameplay of usually the Spiral Knights network group playing whatever happens to have caught their fancy on that particular week. Usually some new games come out and they've jumped on it. It's like, hey, let's all play this game. And they will put up a video or two on something else. And that's it. That's not a consistent stream of content from those guys. I don't know, you'd have to ask them. I mean, when the last missions came out, I did want to get the group together to do something, but quite frankly, by the time I got to the point where I was trying to organize the group, they'd already jumped into the game, done it together, and I think made a video about it, and the only person I knew in the video making scene, I don't know why I did that, the only person I knew in the video making scene that hadn't done it yet was Sky Scythe, so me and Sky Scythe ended up doing it together, and I enjoyed that run, but, you know, it would have been nice to have had a group of... Oh, that was bizarre. I opened the gate map. I'm going to tentatively attempt to do that again. And the game froze and threw me back out to the title screen. Okay. That's really bizarre. Okay, where are we at? We're at Gremlins, so I need to fight Gremlins. Where was I in my thoughts? I would have liked to have done those old missions with, you know, 4 of the old group. We could have gotten, you know, 4 of the Spiral Knights network to do that as a group. That would have been kind of fun. I'd have liked to have done that, but those guys had gone on without me, so... Not much to be done there. Not much to be done there. Deconstructor is my gremlin thing. That's what I need. That is what I am looking for in life. That is what I want. Got some shadow weapons. Just what I need for the gremlins is. And how do I feel about the most recent missions that 3 rings strung together? And do you think the opening of the core will be a game changer? I enjoyed the missions. They were fun. They were different. I liked seeing the palette change. That was definitely cool. And always nice to see them using some new art assets and bringing something new and interesting to the game. Good to see them advancing the narrative. I just think they don't do it anywhere nearly often enough. There's kind of these tiny snippets of story every 3 months. Well, they could be doing a little bit more to advance that, I think. Just every 3 months, a tiny drop of story. Really? really isn't what the game needs. It needs more than that. Far more than that. So, it's good, but there needs to be more of it. He's opening the core a game changer? It is a... I'm not sure quite what you want to mean by a game changer. It is a narrative progressor? Uh-oh. Now there are bullets everywhere. Uh-oh. Let's let the gremlinses come in. Can I get the gremlinses to come in? They don't have pathfinding skills. Okay. Well, that's not going to work then. Let's let that do that. Kill those guys. Shield up. Because I can never remember how to shield up. Which is one of my major failings in life. I should take a Swift Strike Buckler, you know. Since I've gotten out of the habit of using a shield, I really should just use the Swift Strike Buckler. Really? All things considered. It would be far more advantageous if my shield actually gave me some useful stats. Okay, lumber's going to... Oh man, what is a lumber going to do? Okay, you're going to follow me, right, cool. We've got a bit of an arena to play in. Yeah, is the core a game changer? Like I say, it's... I don't think it does much other than just push the story. It's interesting to get some narrative and lore and stuff, but it's not really changed much other than what we know about this world. Has it changed it insofar as it's brought people back? No, not for any long period of time. Any vanguards that did it came back, did it, finished it in like an hour, and have now moved on to go and play. I think by and large Final Fantasy XIV, I think, is probably what a lot of them are playing. If my friends list is anything to go by. Seems to be the big MMO that quite a lot of people are in right now. I don't know, that one never grabbed me. Final Fantasy XIV was just, I don't know, it didn't do much for me. Not as much as other things like Sky Saga. I'm glad that doesn't do much through the wall. I got the knockback, which could have been nasty with the spikes there, but... Would have been far nastier to actually take the brunt of a full lumber in the face. Have a laser. Step into my laser. Oof. That just stopped doing damage halfway through that. Well done, cat. Well done. You are absolutely hopeless. So yeah, those are the questions that came from the fan mail this week, so thank you for those. Thank you very much for that, Raga Prince. What else have we got? We have... Daniel Coppedge, in brackets Daniel. Truman Show theory. The Truman Show is a movie about a man who was raised from birth inside a giant dome, knowing nothing about the outside world, and his whole life and decisions are recorded on live televisions 24/7. Could this be possible in real life? Could this happen? Is it already? It was a good film. I like The Truman Show. Truman Show's good. A lot of people are like, oh god, it's really awful. I don't know. I kind of like The Truman Show. I think if it were possible, you wouldn't know it was possible, so how do you know? It's kind of, it's the brain in a jar theory, isn't it? It's like, how do we know we're not just a brain in a jar in a laboratory somewhere and the entire world is simulated? You would have no way to know. How do we know that we're not just a computer simulation? Which goes back to the short story I have recommended reading before, which is, I don't know, Timmy being God is a big responsibility, which you should totally look up and read on the internet because it's available to read on the internet, and it is a great short story about simulated universes, and how do you know you're not in a simulated universe? How do you know you are not merely the product of a computer construct by a more advanced civilization? All of these are much of the similar sort of thing in the same sort of concept. How do you know everything that you know is real? And the answer to that is, you kinda don't. But if you lose sleep freaking out about whether you're real or not, you're going to have a tough life. So I think the best thing to do is just accept what you know and enjoy life, knowing what you know. Oh god, at these things. Please tell me these things stop and I can kill them at some stage. They're not gold, they must stop. Stop! Stop! Cool. You two stopped. Good. You, quick! There we go. I just want rid of some of these. Actually, it'd be really nice to get rid of all of these. I don't know if any other enemies are going to spawn in here. They hopefully won't. Because that would just make a room nasty. That would make a room nasty. Oh, great. I'm frozen. God damn it. Let me out. Let me out. Freedom. Freedom. Horrible, horrible freedom. So yeah, Truman Show, given what I know to exist of the world, I don't think it would be a thing that would happen, just because I feel like, you know, it probably breaks too many morality issues for television. I think there are morality concerns, and I think that the budget would be far away above and beyond anything any TV show could ever manage. But then, if I were the one in the TV show, then that's a game changer, because I don't know what the universe outside of the show would be like. So maybe the world outside of the Truman Show is actually a post-scarcity society in which it will be absolutely trivially easy just to have, like, matter fabricators construct an entire world for someone to live in, basically. A small little world. Little island world. I know I missed the crystals. Nuts to the crystals! I'm going on without the crystals. I do not need those crystals. So yeah, if you were part of the show, you would have no way of knowing what was possible outside of the show, and therefore, yeah, that's the brain in the jar issue again. It's you have no way of knowing that was what was happening to you. But assuming that we're in a society that would do that to somebody else, and that I'm not the core of the show, then in the world that we're in, I don't think that would be possible because of budgetary and morality constraints. Again, in any outside society, I don't know what morality constraints might kind of apply. They might be a society with a different set of morals, and they might be totally okay with imprisoning a person for their entire life for the sake of the entertainment of billions. What are we doing here? This is Beasts, right? I'm going to be dubious about clicking the gate map every time. Yay, it worked. Breaks once. How many times have I clicked the gate map in my life and it's never broken? Every time I do this from now on, I'm going to be like, is this going to kick me out of the game? Just because I clicked the gate map, it just suddenly go, nope, no, you may no longer play Spiral Knights. You click the gate map. Alrighty. Got something to stab beasties with. Beasties. Okay, Croc says, what do you think if all the electricity was depleted? As in, we had no more access to electronics. I think at first it would be chaos, because now humanity is reliant on machines to do things for them, and they don't work anymore. And if they don't work anymore, everyone would go crazy. After a while, we'd go back to something like Renaissance or around that time, and live like that for the rest of our days. Are we just kind of ignoring the fact that that's kind of not how electricity works? Electricity is the movement of electrons within metallic structures, and in that sense kind of doesn't ever get depleted. But if we're talking about, like, I don't know, that's such an extreme scenario that would never really ever particularly occur. I think this is more sort of a thought experiment, I guess, needs to be approached as, rather than a literal-minded, hey, is this possible? Because kind of no. You're basically saying every possible source of electricity ever on Earth had been, you know, removed. We have no coal, we have no oil, we have no gas to burn to make power plants. All the nuclear energy has been expended. Every kind of nuclear isotope ever that could produce heat. Basically anything that could ever produce any heat, actually. Because, you know, the vast majority of electricity sources are power plants, and the power plants basically just run on heat. So we have no way of ever generating any heat ever again. Ever. We cannot turn water to steam. That's just not available. And in addition, why solar panels cease to work? I don't know. The sun must have died. I think we've got bigger fish to fry if the sun's died. And all weather cycles have ceased as well, for there's no wind, so we can't generate any wind power. Yeah, just as I could this happen? No, couldn't happen. If it did, yes, it would be chaos. We are far too reliant on things. It's, I think most people probably aren't sort of aware of how reliant we are on a lot of things. A lot of basic stuff. It's like, if all the technology we had stopped working today, would you be able to... How many people would be able to recreate sort of fundamental things that we need? not a lot of people would have the technology and know-how. I think a lot of people would reliant on kind of just the knowledge. The knowledge of humanity is mostly stored fairly well on the internet, you know, broadly speaking, and to lose that, we would lose a lot of the knowledge, because then it's well, which knowledge is in the hands of which humans, and they are pretty much going to be the people that would be needed to, you know, make and craft and forward things. And there's an equally interesting thought experiment, which was, again, is something I've referred to before, but I will happily recommend looking it up. There's Ryan North, who is the author of the popular webcomic Dinosaur Comics. He's just an excellent writer all around. He also wrote To Be or Not to Be, which is available on Steam and also excellent. It's a choose-your-own-adventure novel about Hamlet, which is fantastic. He's an excellent writer, and there is a TED talk of his. I mean, it's not a TED talk, it's a TEDx talk, which is TED-like, because TED is gratuitously overblown and overpriced and expensive and kind of circle-jerky these days. Did you know TED Talks, it's about $8,000 a ticket, and you need to have 2 referrals from 2 people to verify your claim that you are someone significant in your field to even be allowed to attend a TED Talk, which is kind of ridiculous. So there are a lot of people doing similar things that is like the same goal in mind, but without that ridiculous overblown expense and elitism, which I kind of like. So at the University of Toronto, he did a TEDx talk, which was about which invention would most change humanity. And it's mostly revolved around knowing. A good part of the talk revolved around knowing what you could build. If you had a time machine and went back in time, what could you provide to earlier civilizations? What would you know how to provide to them to impress them? And the fact is, most people probably couldn't do much. He also has a t-shirt on this matter, which is just, say you have a time machine, say you've gone back in time for some reason. This t-shirt is a list of a simple way to reconstruct most of mankind's fairly impressive advancements and technologies for you to provide that to an earlier civilization and pass yourself off as a god or deity or something, or probably a witch and get yourself burned at the stake. One of the two. Both are good options. Could happen, could go either way. So, yeah, there's a list of those things. And there's simple stuff. It's like, well, okay, so all our electronics are gone. We've got no GPS. How do we navigate? I guess maps still work to a certain extent, but, you know, if in this hypothetical time travel scenario, we're just trying to provide an easy way for an earlier civilization to navigate. Could you make a compass? How many people could make a compass from scratch and make it work? Would you know how to do that? They're not terribly complex things, but most people wouldn't really know how to do that. And there's just a lot of very similar things to that. That's the only particular example that really sprung to mind. But is there anything more complex than that? So, admittedly, Dara O'Brien's got a fairly similar one as well. He's got an entire bit on that, which is about going back in time and bringing technology to other people. It's like, if you went back in time and were like, oh, I'm from the future, we've got these magical machines, we can bring up any information, we can display things. Look, it's got moving pictures on it. We can look at how the pictures move. It's basically sorcery to them. It's like, wow, this is incredible. How? That's fantastic. How does it work? Well, it's got this cable, and you plug it into the wall, and then the pictures happen. It's like, okay, right, okay. Well, what else have you got? Well, we've got a toilet. Toilets. You've got flushing toilets. That's a revolution in sanitation. It's like, rather than just, you know, pooping in a bucket, we've got this. It will take it away and cleaner and improve your healthcare wildly because people aren't pooping in buckets anymore. It's like, okay, well, how does that work? Well, it's got this tube, and it goes into the wall, and you push a lever, and it goes into the wall. Okay, so the magical wall. I see. Okay, what else you got? What about a toaster? You put bread in and it makes bread hot, and it's like, well, we can already make bread hot. Okay, sure. How does that work? Well, it's got this cable, and it goes in the wall. Yeah. So, yeah, most people wouldn't know how anything remotely complex worked, quite frankly. And most people probably wouldn't have a particularly great grasp on how a lot of simple things work. generating electricity as well. Again, just a small amount of electricity. I mean, again, the premise of the scenario is that we don't have electricity, but nonetheless, disregarding that and continue on with the time travel angle of things, is like to actually make some small amount of electricity to power a lamp or whatever. You wouldn't need a lot of electricity. You can do that with sort of, you know, human-driven dynamos and stuff. You see that all the time as kind of like novelty things. You're like, oh, you get a kid's toy, it's like, oh, turn the crank and the light bulb comes on. Or actually, there's a lot of people into cycling in my area, and occasionally you see these sort of novelty things where like, oh, if you pedal the dynamo, it'll power something. There was something on a local bandstand the other week that was, they'd got a bunch of bicycles set up for it, and they were like, oh, if you cycle the bicycles, it'll power the music. You know, the PA system's hooked up to this, and just the people cycling will power the PA. I'm not rightly convinced that was totally accurate. I think they had a generator hidden somewhere, because there were a few times when there were just a few kids half-heartedly pedaling, not very, very quickly, if even at all, on the bikes. And it was like, where's the power coming from? The PA still seems to be working, and you've got 4 bikes, of which 2 of them have kids on them. One of them is pedaling slowly, and one of them is not pedaling. The PA is still going, so I think that was more a facade than anything else. But the principle stands, you know, you can do that. If you have 4 healthy and competent adults actually pedaling with some actual effort, that is actually a practical thing. So, yeah, you know, human power can generate electricity. You don't need a nuclear power plant to be able to make electricity, and you could impress people that way. So that's again something that's it's not complicated to do, but would you know how to do it? I think for a lot of people the answer is probably no. So yeah, if we lost electricity, it would become an era of chaos. Eventually things would probably settle down, just because they would have to. I think a lot of lives would probably be lost in the ensuing chaos, as tends to happen in chaos when it ensues. That's just kind of unfortunate. Where mass chaos tends to end in things going terribly awry. So, lives would probably be lost, and eventually would sort of settle down to some sort of competency and state of affairs. And yeah, you'd end up with sort of, I don't know what era we'd end up back in. Renaissance, you say Renaissance? I'm not quite sure. I guess maybe Renaissance. It's probably not an unreasonable era to point to and say, yes, this is the era. I was just thinking, going back even a few hundred years, we were reliant on like ships and stuff. Like we had no aircraft. There was no, if you wanted to go around the world and do anything internationally, it all involved ships. Well, without sort of engineers and the know-how and the technological know-how to make ships or anything. Well, that's the thing, the idea, what I'm getting at is like making wooden ships. How many people have the actual know-how? How many people in this world have the skills to make a wooden ship? I imagine there must be people out there, but not a lot, and it's kind of finding those people in society and bringing them to their rightful place as a person of talent and usefulness. It would get there eventually. People would begin to make ships once more, but for a moment, all the engineers that are used to making sort of, your metal ships, as it were, suddenly those people will be like, well, normally I'm reliant on blueprints and some computer programs to help me figure out the structural integrity of the hull and the layout and the bulkheads and the whatever else goes into it, and the turbines and engines that make the ships go and everything else. These don't apply to making a galleon, basically. A wooden galleon. An old wooden ship. Yeah, the modern principles just... there would be some applicable principles, I'm sure, and they could probably turn their hands to it, but the existing skill set would not be designed for that sort of thing. Chaos! Chaos would reign, chaos would ensue. It would be a time of chaos. I want a blue gem. I don't know why I want a blue gem. I am ever hopeful that Three Rings will add a blue battle sprite to this. I feel like a blue battle sprite is overdue. These things should be added to the game. So yes, that is what would happen if there were no electricity. I think you're pretty spot on, to be honest. And as I say, I will recommend you check out Ryan North's works. If you don't read dinosaur comics, actually I confess I haven't read dinosaur comics in a while, but dinosaur comics was, and indeed still is, as far as I'm aware, excellent and should be read. He's a very clever, witty writer and does a really clever stuff with the format that he has. He also, yes, as I say, he rewrote Hamlet in a choose-your-own-adventure format. That is excellent and also worth checking out. And the talk to which I referred is available. If you look up Ryan North TEDx talk on YouTube, you should probably be able to find it, or Ryan North University of Toronto. One of those search terms should probably bring that up. In fact, tell you what, I'm pretty sure I have that saved in my YouTube favorites. I don't have many videos saved there. That's one of them. I will probably link that in the description if you're interested, because I feel like you should be interested. I feel like that's a really interesting video that people should be interested in. So hooray! Yes, this brings us to the end. This brings us to Basil. What does Basil have to sell us? Basil, what are you selling? You are selling nothing that I particularly think will sell. We've got a fusion blaster, elemental blaster, and a breach blaster, which is piercing. Do those sell well? I'm not rightly sure if they do. I'm not rightly sure whether I would be able to turn those for a profit. I'm just a bit dubious on those. Yeah, I'll leave those. So that brings us to the end. So yes, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to leave your questions in the comments below, or indeed you can send me them through the mail in-game, as people have done this week, and that is much appreciated either way. I will give you a mini shout-out when I read the questions, so you get fame and prestige on the YouTubes or something, and the pleasure of knowing you have furthered an excellent, maybe, YouTube series. So, yay! Questions and comments and topics and things, always super appreciated. Please leave those. Also, don't forget to leave a like, because that helps the video a lot, and helps me a lot, and helps me grow and be successful and speak to more people on the YouTubes, which I always enjoy. And finally, the usual one. You know the drill by now, probably. I will link to my Patreon account in the outro in a hot second. And if you really, really, really want to support me with some spare monies that you have lying around, you can go donate money there. And in exchange for your monthly subscription of $1 or more, you will get extra YouTube content from me every week that nobody else gets to see, and that's totally exclusive and awesome. So yay, that's over there. So thank you very much for watching. I've been Meroka, this has been Spiel, and I will see you next time!